Greetings, I'm Sophis. Today I'm bringing you a build focused on the new Gluttony Tome as well as the Imperial Reavers, the new subculture that reflects the old original Reavers. An interesting combination that can be had with this is that Gluttony actually makes for a very decent early assistance to the capturing power of the Imperial Reavers. Illusory Feast may be a single target spell, but if it lands, it goes a long way to prime an enemy for capture. The strategy of this faction then goes deeper into this focus. Thanks to Turncoat Masters in the reworked Imperium tree, we can reliably count on recruiting enemy units that rout, so delving into morale damage will give yet another means of capturing enemies. At the same time, Gluttony favors raiding strategies due to the demonic hunger minor transformation. Reavers also need this for the sake of their own unique resource, so will go for raiding. The only thing that this build doesn't have in regards to capturing enemies is a way to do so with higher tier units that are immune to control effects, as not even morale loss will permit you to capture them. Still, anything short of that should be possible to capture. Units-wise, you'll have a lot at your disposal. All the Reaver cultural units will benefit from enchantments one way or another. Mercenaries will benefit from blood-drinking blades, blood fury weapons, cruel weaponry, and accursed armors. The magelocks and the cannon will benefit from blood fury weapons, tormenting imbuement, and accursed imbuement. Both the Harrier and the Dragoon as skirmishers will benefit from a lot more enchantments, getting everything listed previously except blood-drinking blades. The Overseer as your main Reaver capturing unit will benefit from Sanguine Focus, Tormenting Imbuement, and Accursed Imbuement. All these form units will also get a lot of minor transformations: Demonic Hunger, Flesh-Carved Runes, Joy Siphoners, Reveler's Heart, Painbound, and Frostling transformation. Later on, all units will then get the Demonkin transformation. All in all, they will sap enemy morale, gorge themselves into a higher health pool, and recover faster on the world map between fights. There is also some synergy with bleeding effects to lower enemy status resistance. Outside of the base cultural units, you will also have access to Blood Cultists for a Battle Mage option and Painbringers as a Mythic Tier 4 unit. A curious outcome of the Tome Path is that most of the summons you'll have access to are Magic Fighter units, which, similarly to Skirmishers, also benefit from the majority of enchantments that you will get. Aside from the Gluttonous Imp summon you'll have early on, you may also gain access to Corrupt Spirits, Snow Spirits, and later on a broader selection of Fiend units to add to your roster. Of course, you'll also have access to irregular units from capturing and routing enemies, but those are harder to account for or plan around, given it will vary from map to map and depends on enemy empires, free cities, and what the wilds have to offer. The only note I'd give is that as a rule of thumb, both Magic Fighters and Skirmishers will get better enchantment access once you capture them. Ruler-wise, this build is fairly free in what you can go for. For testing this out, I've gone with the Wizard King, due to the benefits of all the transformations. Given the access to good spells, being able to dual cast was valuable, but due to how Gorged works, especially if you go for the Gluttony Ascension trait later on, it was better to have a frontliner so that you benefit the units that do want more HP. With heroes, I've once again favored Warlocks, this time due to the branch in their skill tree that gives access to morale damaging strategies, as well as the means to control enemy units that get low enough in battle. Any frontline class would also work well, since Gluttony will give them extra HP to hold the line. There are a few Empire Tree picks which I recommend for this build. First, Turncoat Masters, as mentioned earlier, to make it easier to capture enemies. Hexes and Curses is also very helpful given the amount of debuffs that you'll have access to. Dark Vigor and Feeding on Fear are mutually exclusive, but either can work. I would slightly favor the former since it doesn't require routing and is a passive, but if you manage to rout a big number of enemy units, you would get a bigger recovery from Feeding on Fear. A natural recovery is a must on this build since you don't want to lose your precious form units that have all their stacks of demonic satiation. On the Chaos branch, I would recommend Battlefield Looting to give you gold on top of the mana and food you already get. Skilled Raiders is sadly exclusive with otherworldly reinforcements, but it is far more suited to the playstyle, even if it would be nice to have a cheaper summon Avatar of Chaos. Then get the Spoilers and Lawless Lands. To further reinforce your low tier units, go for Resilient Hordes. Your mercenaries will benefit greatly from this one. Let's get into society and form traits. Of course, we're playing Imperial Reavers. To compound on the raiding strategy and the theme of gluttony, we're going for Apex Predators and Ritual Cannibals. This combined with gluttony should give plenty of food to grow your cities despite being quite low in nature affinity. Form traits focus on health, regeneration and causing damage to attackers, so we're going with fast recuperation, hardy and inner frost. Your units will already recover more health due to pillaging bonuses and minor transformations like flesh-carved runes, so it makes perfect sense to double down on it for a very fast recovery. The Inner Frost trait is preferred over Inner Fire due to the Demonkin transformation giving weakness to Frost. Combined with the Frostlink transformation, your units should have 2 Frost resistance and immunity to the Frozen status. This would make it so that their one elemental weakness is Spirit damage. Now let's look into the tomes. We start with Tome of Gluttony, of course. We already have Illusory Feast at the start to capture early units. The first research to prioritize would be the Gluttonous Imp Summon to shore up your forces just in case. Then Demonic Hunger. With the remaining options, depending on your map, either go for Corrupt Pact so you can use free cities to speed up your city growth, or Infernal Jaws to help build up gorged stacks. Next we have Tome of the Blood Rite. The priorities are Flesh Carved Runes, Blood Drinking Blades, Sanguine Focus, and Rite of Life Leeching. This build is high on Chaos, so we do want the Chaos Bolstering Matrix. Besides, with a Wizard King you could dual buff your units with it and Demonic Onslaught later on, giving your units maximum strengthened stacks, hastened, and killing momentum. You can research the Blood Cultist if you want, but the build doesn't focus much on Battle Mage units. At tier 2 we have Tome of the Doom Herald. Here the priorities are Joy Siphoners and Cruel Weaponry. Cause Despair would be the next priority. Then either go for the Corrupt Soul Summon to have another magic fighter focused on morale damage, or go for Prelude of Doom. You could also use this last research to get something from the earlier tomes, as neither are high priorities, especially since later on you'll have a better enemy army spell to use. Tome of Revelry is next. Blood Fury weapons and Reveler's Heart should go first. Then the rest of the tome is up to you. The Scald will be the highest level support unit you will have access to, short of capturing one from your enemies. And it plays well enough into the whole army composition by giving out Strengthened and Fortune. Revels of Blood and Revels of Carnage are good researches, but I wouldn't say they are crucial. So again, this is an opportunity to research things you missed from earlier tomes. I'll make a very quick aside here and say that if you really want to, you can substitute the Tome of Revelry for the Tome of Burning Passion. I avoided it since I have used it quite a bit in my Secrets of the Archmages builds so far, but it does have a synergy with this build. Strength Sapping Imbuement and Fiery Heart are powerful benefits, and the Temptress unit will give you a racial magic fighter to benefit from most of the enchantments and the minor transformations. The only downside, and a minor one at that, is that you won't have Blood Fury weapons to help trigger Flesh Carved Runes status bypass. At tier 3, we go all in on Shadow Affinity. Tome of Torment gives us the Painbringer as our highest tier form unit, and we have Tormenting Imbuement and Painbound as our priorities. I would then research the Lens of Anguish for even more casting points in battle, plus the benefit of extra morale damage on enemies. With a Wizard King as your ruler, this can get quite strong for breaking the enemy. Next we have Tome of the Cold Dark. With some reliance on applying status effects to our enemies, it's difficult to ignore this one. Flash Freeze is the most important research in this tome, followed by Frostling Transformation to help make up for the frost weakness we'll get later on. Also grab Marching Winter to terraform your lands if you'd like, as well as the Snow Spirit Summon if you want another magic fighter. At tier 4, we start with Tome of the Demon Gate. Demonkin is the major transformation we've been building up to, and at this point they'll only be weak to spirit damage. Sacrificial Slaughter is an interesting research here due to the capture focus of this build. Captured enemies hold less value for you, so it's always an option to just have them in your armies precisely for the sake of using this spell, making them a disposable burst damage. Other than that, I would go for Gremlin Ambushers to help the city defense to a minor degree, and Summon Baylor if you want a tier 5 mythic. You'll certainly have the food production to compensate its population cost. Next we have Tome of Calamity. As always, Accursed Imbuement and Accursed Armors are the priorities. Then, Research Comet of Calamity and Ritual of Calamity. The Calamity Dragon is a valid alternative to the Baylor if you prefer, or research both. Lastly, we get to Tome of the Chaos Lord at tier 5. Pretty much everything in this tome has its use: Demonic Onslaught and Demonic Siphon to help boost your units, and Call Forth Avatar of Chaos gives you your ruler in every combat if you so choose. Incite Rebellion also couples quite well with Ritual of Calamity to make the start of a siege chaotic for the defender. And that's the build. I did this one because of a viewer's request, as I was trying to figure out something for the Gluttony Tome since this update came out. All in all, it's a fairly solid build focused on raiding and morale break, and happens to make the most use out of the Imperial Reavers' strong points. It ended up even more cohesive than what I initially considered whilst theory crafting the build. And that's all I have for you today. I hope you're having a good day and see you in the next one.